Don't miss this year's AUVSI Xponential in Orlando, Florida on April 25th through the 28th. It's the largest global gathering for the drone and uncrewed systems industry, and you're going to want to be a part of it. Go to xponential.org for more information and to register.
These things will perform as we expect in accordance with our values and are used for good, or they will end up performing poorly, leaving us disappointed, creating potentially new hazards or being used for ill. The takeaway here is that message, right? Let's think about this. The technologists and business leaders who are out in front, take a look at it and make sure we're doing all we can.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 357. Do autonomous drones pose ethical questions? To find out, we head to Redwood City, California, and speak with Jenn Player, Director of Regulatory Affairs at Skydio. Skydio is the leading American drone manufacturer and world leader in autonomous flight. The company leverages breakthrough AI to create the world's most intelligent flying machines for use by consumers, enterprises, and government customers. Founded in 2014, Skydio is made up of leading experts in AI, robotics, cameras, and electric vehicles from top companies, research labs, and universities from around the world. Skydio designs, assembles, and supports its products in the U.S. to offer the highest standards of supply chain and manufacturing security. At Skydio, Jenn collaborates with customers, regulators, and standards development organizations to unlock safe and effective autonomous and docked drones operations. Before joining Skydio, Jenn spearheaded an industry-leading regulatory program under the FAA's Pathfinder program, capturing a number of breakthrough BVLOS approvals. She has also played a key role supporting other leading industry programs in infrastructure inspection and package delivery. Autonomous drones offer great promise, but there are also unknowns. In many instances, it boils down to how much innovative decision-making and learning capability should be vested to an autonomous vehicle, and for what purpose. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, Jenn talks about Skydio and the need to consider ethical implications of using autonomous unmanned systems. But before we hear from Jenn, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And by the way, if you have a great story on the use of drones that you'd like to share in a podcast, contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. So let's learn about some of the ethical considerations of autonomous drones with Jenn Player of Skydio. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Jenn to introduce herself.
My name is Jennifer Player. I'm Director of Regulatory Affairs at Skydio. In my role, I collaborate with customers, with regulators, and with standards development organizations to unlock safe and effective autonomous drone operations.
Jenn, for those that may not be familiar with Skydio, what does the company do?
Skydio is the leading U.S. drone manufacturer. We build the world's most intelligent flying machines, and our customers include consumers, enterprises, and the government. Our founders met as graduate students at MIT more than a decade ago, and Skydio was founded in 2014. We have an amazing team of leading experts in AI, robotics, cameras, and electric vehicles from top companies, labs, and universities around the world. We design, assemble, and support our products right here in the U.S. from our headquarters in San Mateo, California. Because of our high standards of supply chain and manufacturing security, Skydio is trusted by leading enterprises across a wide range of industry sectors. Our mission is to make the world more productive, creative, and safe with autonomous flight.
What makes Skydio stand out from other UAS manufacturers?
It's really our autonomous capabilities and our mindset in bringing that to industry and government right now, pushing the boundary on that. So our systems offer obstacle avoidance. They are using computer vision and AI to sense the world around them and navigate a safe pathway. They are easy to operate by a variety of users, including inexperienced drone pilots. So our systems make every drone pilot look good, even me. And I think that's what makes us stand out. It's that ease of use. It's the enormous utility and safety that comes from our autonomous capabilities.
Who's using Skydio drones? Or put in another way, who would really get the greatest value from the company's systems?
Well, I really think it's that spectrum of users, from consumers to enterprises to the government. We certainly have our products in the consumer sector that bring amazing video capture and content creation capabilities to consumers with our keyframe capability and a lot of the features that we've introduced over the past few years. There are people out there just capturing extraordinary videos. Then on the enterprise side, for inspection, our capabilities are right at home there in infrastructure inspection with major enterprises across transportation, construction, and power and utility. And then, of course, on the defense side, there's uses there as well.
My impression of Skydio is that it has always developed its drones with autonomy at its core. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. As I mentioned, our founders met as grad students at MIT, where I think they performed one of the first sort of flights where the system was planning and predicting its own path in and around obstacles, and they were able to accomplish that. And that became sort of the core of what they built when they envisioned Skydio and what makes us different.
Going back to what you do at Skydio, can you give us more insight into your role and responsibilities?
So I'm in regulatory affairs, and what I do is work with our customers and work with regulators. So to get advanced approvals, for example, using the waiver and exemption process, we need to bridge that gap between the rules we have today and the rules of tomorrow. So beyond Part 107, there's a lot of value in doing BVLOS operations. There's a lot of value in working around this sort of paradigm of a physically present remote pilot in command. So I work with our customers and with regulators to overcome and break down some of those regulatory barriers so we can truly utilize the potential of autonomous drones. Standards development has a role to play in all of this as well, and I participate in those organizations.
Is it getting easier to navigate the regulations?
I'd say the FAA deserves a lot of credit as of late for understanding where this industry is at, where it wants to go, and trying to march forward in the safest way possible to get to the end state we're all trying to get to, which really opens up operations and brings that potential out in our systems. So one big thing as of late is the BVLOS ARC report. There's a lot of forward-leaning content in that report that we hope will be seriously considered. And if those recommendations were adopted, it would do a lot to open things up, make it easier to do the kinds of operations that bring best benefit.
What's the one word that you feel best describes the industry today?
I think potential. The industry today is simultaneously a story of rapid growth and, to a certain extent, unrealized potential. There are incredible possibilities which sometimes seem out of reach for various reasons. Let's take infrastructure inspections as one example. Traditional means typically involves, heavy machinery and some risk to the people involved. And even when things go perfectly there, those inspections don't often generate a comprehensive digital record that can be used for analysis and tracking over time to gain a lot of intelligence about the inspection itself and the thing being inspected. And despite these benefits on these inspections conducted by drone, they're still fairly niche. I think we can and will do even better as an industry to accelerate mainstream adoption of drones and then, realize that full potential. There's so much good work to be done.
How simple is it to use a drone that is built on autonomy?
One thing that is just utterly impressive is Skydio 3D scan, which can be enabled to build a digital twin of a structure, of a scene. And it's so easy and simple to use. It's really quite mind-blowing. You set very few parameters, sort of a perimeter, a floor and a ceiling, and the drone takes over and navigates that space and mines the boundaries that have been established to contain the operation. And it goes about using the sort of image capture settings to just go about its work. And then we have really nice software features that help the back-end data processing pipeline be executed in a timely fashion. And customers can get that digital twin out the other side with amazing resolution and quality. I think this is like super game-changing because it's just so easy to do. And the results are so excellent.
Sort of reminds me of the scene from the movie Prometheus, where the drone maps an underground facility, and we watch the computer reconstruct the digital model as it's happening.
Yes, it's extremely similar. I mean, the first time I saw it, I almost couldn't believe it. And I've been around the drone industry for a while, so I think it is one of the more impressive products out there right now.
What can you tell us about what we might see next from Skydio?
Well, my mission and my passion at Skydio is to enable remotely operated and eventually autonomous scheduled operations from docked drones, meaning that the drones become kind of more of the system, more of the infrastructure, more of a tool, and somewhat less of an aircraft in a way. They become sort of part of the system. Again, like a very useful tool that is in position, ready to be used, ready to conduct an inspection, ready to secure a perimeter, all without a lot of interaction from people. The drone has a job to do. It knows how to perform it safely and effectively and can be counted on to deliver results.
So one day, we might see a bridge that has a drone built into its structure. And when it's needed, it just pops out of the bridge, does its work, and then pops back in.
Exactly. And then the data flows to where it needs to be so that the humans who now have a much more high value job and task to do that doesn't put them in harm's way can go about dealing with issues or repairs as necessary and keep marching forward. And hopefully that data collection can be done then sort of more frequently to stay on top of changes and, take timely actions based on really good data.
And putting my city planner hat on, that's the kind of decision that designers and engineers would make right at the beginning of a project, much like how to handle parking or where utilities go, providing security, or how to best maintain a park.
Yeah, that's ideal. There's a lot of good use cases there in construction and critical infrastructure inspection, in surveillance and security of places that need to be protected for the public good. And to build that in and to make use of it in that way, in that most efficient way, it really does bring benefits. And that's what I hope to enable. And that's what we hope to do at Skydio, what we will do.
What are some of the challenges in achieving that mission?
Well, I'm not worried much about the technology. Given our amazing team, I think the technology will be in our hands. You could say it's already in our hands, but refinements of it will happen very quickly and very soon. We do have regulatory hurdles to overcome to enable that vision. And we talked about the BVLOS ARC report. There's content in there that's helpful in bringing this vision forward. We need to get to the point where we can sort of embrace this idea of drones out there doing work kind of more as tools, more as robots, maybe a little bit less as aircraft, even though, believe me, I am super mindful of conducting operations with flying vehicles in the safest manner possible. I've been working on that for many, many years. But, there is a difference between a really small drone flying pretty close to the ground, away from people, close to structures and things that need to be inspected, kind of versus sort of flying over the public generally. And so that's a bridge, right, between the concern about drones just kind of everywhere, all over your neighborhood. I mean, we can get there safely too. But on that road, there are these really wonderful use cases that would benefit from having drones out there doing work in an efficient way. And it can be done safely. So I think working together with regulators, working with customers, we just keep pushing this envelope forward along that path and try to bring these things, overcome these regulatory hurdles that exist today, just simply because of the paradigm that exists today with the way drones are operated. This is really the next step. And so again, while I think the technology may be ready right now, we do have some regulatory challenges, and I think we'll overcome those soon as well.
Obviously, there are many benefits to using autonomous systems, but there are also some ethical questions. In fact, at the end of April, you're going to be moderating a session on ethics and autonomy at Xponential 2022 in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, so the topic is the ethics of AI. How do we ensure AI and autonomy technology reflect our values? So AI technologies are transformative, and they promise to make our industry safer and more efficient while transforming the way we fly the skies and the way we drive the roads. But it's critical that these technologies are developed and deployed in a manner that reflects, our highest ethical sensibilities. And in this panel, our experts will discuss how companies are grappling with that, leading the way in this AI-enabled autonomy, while also kind of ensuring that it reflects our shared values.
Is there an overarching theme or a key question that we need to consider?
I think that the challenge that we all face is how we build and deploy and test AI-enabled systems so that they perform in the way that we all want them to. Our technologists are great about this, wonderful at it, but there aren't a lot of guidelines and standards. It's somewhat up to individual companies and individual technologists right now to ensure that that's all taking place. I think a lot of companies are doing well at this, but there's a lot that we don't know yet as we push more and more of this technology into the world.
And as we know, technology tends to advance a lot quicker than our discussions, which just adds to the challenge.
That's true. Year over year, you can just see the amazing progress happening before your eyes in this realm. It's easy for tech to kind of get out in front of what we may have intended. So it's always good to take a step back and look at what we're doing as an industry and as individuals and ensure that we're all being mindful of these impacts and what can we do to make sure that these technologies really do perform the way we want.
For those thinking about attending your session, what do you think they'll get out of it?
I think this panel will be interesting to both technologists and leadership of companies that are building AI-enabled products and services. A few technologists, a few business leaders are really trained on ethical AI, and many believe that maybe the government will take care of it. There'll be regulations, but governments they do have a critical role to play here, but so do we as technologists and business leaders and individuals. And the technologists are out in front, developing and deploying tools, code that, again, these things will perform as we expect in accordance with our values and are used for good, or they will end up performing poorly, leaving us disappointed, creating potentially new hazards or being used for ill. And so the takeaway here is that message, right? Let's think about this. The technologists and business leaders who are out in front, take a look at it and make sure we're doing all we can as regulations and standards kind of fill in from almost behind at this point. So we could all do a lot as a community to make sure that while we see all the benefits of this technology and we minimize any harms or hazards created.
My experience has been that government will step in when there's a lot of complaints and a void in responding. Is there an organized approach to elevate the discussion of ethics and AI among the various stakeholders?
I think particularly in aviation, and I'm sure in automotive as well, which I'm not as versed in, you're seeing standards organizations kind of come in from the technology side and start asking these questions about what do we do to ensure autonomy? What do we do to make sure that on the front end it performs the way we want it to? So that's good. That's a community and industry solution to the problem versus regulation coming down. And as you point out, right, that's generally governments involved after the fact when there are problems to solve. But we could do a lot up front. I think you're seeing that happen.
Now, is your background in technology, or is it more legal or even along the ethical side?
I'm definitely a technologist. I've got an engineering background, and my experience in this field is from applied computer vision and machine learning to image analytics. So that's where I learned about this technology and have some experience with it. And then, we've all been paying attention to the issues that have come up in the news and the issues that we face in building these systems. And at Skydio, of course, we're very, autonomy is our thing. And we have to, make sure that we pay attention to all these trends and the technologies themselves and that we put the best product out there. So
true autonomy is only as good as what's been programmed into the drone, right? I mean, there are controls or instructions that set the boundaries for the autonomy.
yeah, for most approaches, right, there's a training process and then a testing and validation process. And then you put the system out in the world and it's going to experience things that perhaps it wasn't exactly trained on, right? So this new situation arises and it resolves that situation. So a lot of it is about how it's trained, under what circumstances, and the depth and breadth of that training. For example, in sensing the world around you, there's just sometimes limitations that appear. So if you want to perform in a certain way and that situation has never been presented, then there is some uncertainty about what course of action will be taken. And so being mindful of that, right? There are examples out there in the world of, say, a situation where a system didn't detect a person being in a particular position or situation in the automotive world. So should that have been thought of beforehand? Or, was there no data available? Was it not considered? Was it outside the parameters of the release of the system? There's a lot to it. You have to be careful about at what state of development some technologies are deployed at, and, how much confidence you have in it to be out in sort of unconstrained circumstances in the world.
So given the unknowns, how do we decide when a system is ready for the real world?
Well, I think there's a balance to be struck, right? Certainly, we can't wait for perfect solutions in order to get technology into the world, right? There's a lot of good that can be done, even with somewhat limited systems. But, it's useful to think about the long term and the next phase and how to progress. And so, again, I think there's a balance to be struck there, and it's worth considering the evolution of a system and how you expect it to perform, going forward over time. That it should get better, right? It should get even better at doing its job than day one of deployment necessarily.
What sort of lessons have you learned about autonomy since working with Skydio?
I think what I've learned being at Skydio is how much better it is than I thought, right? My experience in image analytics gave me a certain perspective, but path planning related, autonomous robots. So a machine navigating the world, moving about the world, and doing work in a way that makes sense and delivers benefit. Skydio is incredibly impressive, the work that they've put into this and where their system is at. And I joined last April. Before joining, I was impressed, but after I joined, I was even more impressed. And so I expect our systems to get even better in the future.
Getting back to Xponential, what are you looking forward to most to this year's event?
I'm always super excited to see all the technology on display in the expo hall. I'm like a kid in a candy store there. This industry moves really fast, and year over year, you can watch that incredible progress happening with all of the tech and all the software and all the drones, all the equipment that's on display and being demonstrated in the expo hall. So I'm always excited about that.
What advice would you give to attendees so they could maximize the value or the experience of attending Xponential?
Yeah, I would say use the tools available to customize your experience. Like the app, they're very helpful and easy to use. And there's so much going on. You don't want to miss the sessions and events that are relevant to your business or your interests. I think it's beneficial to build a plan.
Jenn, is there anything that we missed that we should talk about?
I think we all know that autonomy will dramatically change our lives. But it's important to acknowledge that it will increase the value and the number of jobs in our industry. This will happen when the tools become more powerful and the impact to the market scales and the jobs perhaps shift from one type of activity to another. That'll happen when we reach the full potential of this technology. That's the future that all of us at Skydio are working hard towards building, and we invite everyone to come along with us on that journey.
And for my final question, Jenn, what message would you like to leave regarding the future of the drone industry?
I only see good things happening. Sometimes progress seems slow, but if you take a step back, you can see the trajectory that we're actually on. And while we'd all like it to speed up, the future definitely is bright, and we're going to see all these benefits happen. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I believe that we will.
That's it for episode 357 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Jenn Player of Skydio I want to thank Jenn for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about Skydio or want to connect with Jenn, check out the website at skydio.com. And remember, on April 25th through the 28th, AUVSI will present Xponential 2022 in Orlando, Florida. It's the largest global gathering for the drone and uncrewed systems industry, and you're going to want to be a part of it. Go to xponential.org for more information and to register. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Gores.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.